Hi, welcome everybody to Music Junkies. I'm super excited about today's episode. We have the great Sarah here, good friend of mine. We've known each other forever. And Sarah, I'm just so, grateful that you're joining us today. I absolutely love your playlist. So I know that we had a little chat prior to obviously starting, but I just wanted you to kind of share with me a little bit about how that experience was, kind of getting the playlist together, and if you had to name your playlist, what would that kind of look like?
Well, what's funny is obviously, well, I don't know if, right, this is a random message from Annette, just like, hey, send me 10 songs. And of course, you don't even ask questions. It's just like, yeah, maybe she's looking to make a new playlist. Maybe, who knows? But the funny thing music means a lot to me. Like lots of songs. I need to know what it's saying, and I love all different types of music. So my list is pretty eclectic, I think. It's my life though. It's kind of who I am. And I was trying to pick songs that were meaningful. But the cool part of that, which I just want to thank you for, is that you kind of forced me to sit down and go through playlists and go through songs. And literally, like, Guy and I spent hours, like we were up till 3 o'clock in the morning going through songs and listening to this one and the words and like remembering, what happened, with this song, where you were. It just brought you back to growing up and in high school, and just, it's so fun. So that process, I didn't even know what you wanted them for. And I'm like, here's my list. I don't know. I could probably put 25 on that list, but I was trying to pick, 10 that are kind of somewhat meaningful. And no, that process was fun. I don't know if I could name it. It's just my life. I don't know. But but thanks for forcing me, because I got a brand new playlist now and I love it.
Yeah, it was when you sent me your playlist, I was just like, this is awesome. And I love it's interesting to go through this process because it sees who you like are connected with. And music does mean so much to me. And I've been noticing going through this process that where I have a deep connection with somebody and maybe not such a deep connection, right?
Right.
And I was like, as soon as I saw your songs, I was just like, this is awesome. No wonder why we're friends. 1,000%, 1,000%. So we're going to start today with, I just want to kind of understand a little bit, maybe if there's a story with any of these songs, please share. I just want you to be yourself and just have a lot of fun. So we'll start with the first song right now. Right, obviously the Counting Crows and Mr. Jones. So what does that song mean to you, Sarah?
So this is one of probably the most meaningful songs for me, and not necessarily the words as much as where I was. So I literally remember I was 21 years old. It was the first trip I had taken with my girlfriend Joanne to Mexico. I could literally am standing in a bar right now overlooking the water in Mexico at sunset. And it was such a moment that I remember sitting there thinking, like, the song came on and I loved the song. And I thought, I'm going to remember this moment. This is such a good, peaceful, amazing moment in my life. And I literally will remember, like, I can see the whole thing. It's just something that every time I hear this song, it just takes me back to being 21, which feels like yesterday, but clearly was not. And, like, just sometimes the songs just relate to these memories and special moments. But it was kind of like the first trip I took with a girlfriend, and one of many, right? So
I love it. So what would be, obviously we want to be 20 again, but what was your favorite 90s jam? Like when that song came on, you're like, oh my God, this is my jam. Didn't matter where you were.
I mean, like, I put on my list Push It,
Yeah,
like Salt and Pepper, because that song was just one that every time, like when I was just kind of going to the bars and kind of, that kind of thing, just starting to go to the bars, and my friends would, every time that song was on, the whole dance floor was, up. We had routines to it. It was something we, it's just kind of like that type of music. But I to this day, if I hear that song, I just like want to get right dance to it. I want to, you remember the words. It's so crazy how you remember the words to all these songs you haven't heard for so long, but they're just kind of part of your life. Like, they can be silly. There's so many I could have put on there, honestly. I'm looking at my list right now. There's so many more that I could have put on there, but
When
trying
we
to,
were, it's funny because I absolutely love that song too growing up. And we had an opportunity. I always drag certain friends to certain kind of
yeah,
concerts. And my girlfriend Jody called me. She's like, oh my God, there's like this late 80s party that we got to go to. It's got like Salt and Pepper, DJ, Rob Bass, all the like Vanilla Ice. I'm like, yeah, we're
yeah.
going, but I want to sit like on the floor, third row. So they come out and I'm just like, this is so insane, incredibly insane. So I want to ask you, Sarah, were you more of a salt or more of a pepper?
I don't even know how to answer that, honestly. It's funny. I've always been, and I think you know this about me too, but as much as I love music, I don't really like to dance. Is kind of funny. I've never taught how to dance, never really we dance a little bit like in the bars and that kind of stuff, and I'll still do that kind of thing, but I don't enjoy dancing as much as I love music. Everyone's always like, come on. I'm like, no, I'm happy here. And they're like, come, you know what I mean? I'm that person that just doesn't, I don't know what it is. Like, I've just never been able to, I kind of wish I was more that person that just kind of lets go. So maybe not. Maybe that's just more who I am as a person.
You're not telling me you're like an Elaine dancer or anything like that.
Yeah. No, I don't dance like Elaine, but I mean, she lets loose. Yeah.
What was one of your very favorite concerts that you ever been to?
Oh, probably, man, there's a few. Tragically Hip.
Yeah.
I've seen them quite a few times. I grew up in Winnipeg, so they played around there quite a bit, outdoor stuff, which was a lot of fun. And the other one I can think of that stands out is it's a Guns N' Roses and Skid Row concert.
Wow.
It was one of the first ones that I went to like pretty young that they didn't come on stage till 10 or 11, and it's just kind of it was a huge deal to get the tickets, and it just kind of was is some Guns N' Roses was a big part of my life too growing up. It was pretty cool to see in person. It's one of the first ones I think I ever went to.
Yeah. So out of that Guns N' Roses band, who was your favorite? Whose poster did you
uh,
have?
yeah, well, is it Sebastian? I can't even remember anymore.
Axl Rose was the singer.
Axl Rose. Yeah, who is that? I can't even think of the well, Axl Rose
Slash was the
probably.
guitar player. See,
Slash, yeah.
I don't know why, but I was like a Duff fan, which is probably one of the
Oh, funny.
of all of them. My girlfriend Autumn, she loved Axl Rose. I always thought he
Yeah.
sucked dance. I just never really.
That's what he looked like. Yeah. But you know what's fun? Like again, Guns N' Roses was such a huge part. It's funny to think, but when I was going through the playlist, I was like, man, I haven't heard these songs for so long. I had to go through all of their albums and all of their songs. So it's pretty fun. Yeah.
So does this song mean something to you then?
Oh yeah. It reminds me of growing up. Like I don't know if I was in junior high, probably junior high school. My brother, he yelled at me from downstairs, come here quick, which he did often. And I'd race downstairs because we didn't have a remote like on the TV back then. Literally, it's like a dial, right? So he'd lay on the couch with his hockey stick and he'd switch the channels with his hockey stick. But he yelled at me to come downstairs. My brother is a huge music fan. And he ran down and he's like, you got to check this out. And it was that song. It was Sweet Child of Mine. And it's the first time I ever heard Guns N' Roses. And I stood there and watched this video and it was awesome. And I just, from there, kind of like build my love for Guns N' Roses. But I'll never forget that moment with like this black and white shag carpet and this awful red velvet couch. Like it was terrible. And that's like, remember the first time I ever heard them was that song.
Did your brother?
And he'd always be like, yeah, he'd always be like, listen to this song, like listen to the words. And then he'd play me a song for 2 seconds and be like, what song is this? Who sings this? Like it's just kind of a test all the time. But that was not unexpected from him, but one that stood out for sure.
So it sounds like you grew up liking tons of different genres of music.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I listened to Tiffany, listened to Guns N' Roses, right?
Did you have a favorite band though? Did you have a favorite band growing up in high school?
if I was going to say my favorite, I would probably say Tragically Hip.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just, yeah. It, I don't really have like a one that I had, like you said, all over my walls and someone
Yeah.
that I kind of, admired the most, but I think Tragically Hip is probably way up there.
Yeah. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit. I'm just curious, Sarah, what's your worst habit? What's something that you do that people are like, oh, like Guy's like, seriously, you have to bite your nails. You have to like, what's your worst habit?
Grinding my teeth.
Grinding your teeth.
Grinding my teeth. I've been doing it since I was a kid. Yeah, I'm a dentist's worst nightmare. But yeah, it's something that it like, because literally right when I'm sleeping or even when I'm just sitting quietly, like I grind my teeth all the time and you can hear it, right?
Yeah.
So people are like, "What?
Oh,
What?"
why are you doing that? Why are you doing
I
that?
can't, it's not even something that I feel like I can't control it, right? It's just something that I've always done, but that's probably one of the worst. I don't bite my nails. You know,
This is good. Have you ever had a stalker before? Some guy stalk you?
yep.
Oh, you feel like sharing that story?
I sure have. Yeah, it's trying to keep names and locations out of it. Actually somebody, so in high school, or I guess I was out of high school. I moved out to my own place with a girlfriend and I was working for a clothing store, and the manager just, yeah, it was kind of a scary kind of a scary situation, because we would go and make our drop like to the bank every night for after the store closed, and then he started following me, which was really weird, and sending me kind of random messages and inappropriate stuff. And the one time I went to go to my car, and I would just drive all over the city, because my dad was my stepdad was a police officer. My mom was a police dispatcher. So I'd phone them and be like, I think this guy's following me. And she's like, just keep driving. And if you have to, drive straight to a police station, and I would drive all over the place and he'd follow me wherever I'd go. Like I'd never drive home. And the one day I went out to the car, or went to go to the car, and he opened the door and said, get in. And I'm like, no, I don't think so. And he said, you have a gun in the glove compartment. You might want to get in. And I was like, I just remember standing there. I was probably 17. And I'm just like, I don't like this. And then somebody drove up and pulled up. And so I just took that and got in the car, and I just quit working there. But it was scary. I mean, it didn't last. Like, it wasn't like it went on and on, and probably is not as bad as a lot of stories, but it definitely went on for a long enough time to scare me as a 17-year-old.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
That's crazy. So what were you like growing up in high school? What kind of crowd did you hang out with?
We hang around with, again, it's a mix, right? So I grew up in Winnipeg, and it's a mix of people like the jocks and people, right? I played a few sports, but I wasn't crazy into sports. Yeah, I mean, it was, if you want to call it, we were a pretty good group of people. Like we still hang around. Like my girlfriend that I grew up with, Joanne, her and I still talk, a few times a week. We see each other all the time. We travel together. We're still friends. So it's been a long, long time. I'm friends with them on Facebook. It's fun. We had a close relationship. We partied a lot, went to lots of socials in Winnipeg, right? They don't have those here, but they were tons of, you would love that. Oh my gosh, you would love socials. You probably have been, but it doesn't matter who the social is for. You just find a social and go and support somebody, whether they're getting married or getting out of jail, who knows, whatever it was. But we had lots of bush parties. Like there's lots of, right? So we did a lot of that. Thankfully, my stepdad, not thankfully, but my stepdad is not around anymore, but he was a police officer for our neighborhood. So that put a little damper on our on our fun growing up. But we had a lot of house parties, that kind of stuff. It was fun. It was a lot of fun. We weren't into a ton of drugs or anything like that. That was something that we never really did. So now we're super like surprised when we hear about the amount of people that are into all these kind of harder, what I consider harder drugs, and they think it's normal. And my girlfriends and I are like, what? Like we never did that stuff growing up. Like pot here and there, but not like hard.
Yeah.
What we consider hard, right, stuff. And it's just, life has changed a lot, but in school I wasn't bad, but I was pretty, what's the word? Like I always had to do well, if that makes sense. Like it was
Yeah,
like
it does.
deeply inside me to like try to, it mattered to me to pass tests. It mattered to me to,
Yeah.
if I got a bad mark, it would matter to me. My parents kind of expected a lot too of me. So I kind of had to try to live up to that expectation.
Yeah.
So
And then
yeah.
and then you throw like this song into the mix, right?
Yeah, yeah. Get your ass up and hurry.
I'm curious. I'm curious.
You're gonna laugh when you hear this story. So that song I played over and over and over again when my kids were learning how to walk. Right? I was like constantly, right? You can do it, put your back into it, constantly. Like we were just like, they were so cute, little tiny people, right? For stumbling and learning how to walk. And it was just something that we made fun. I don't know. That's so funny. When I hear that song, I just think about but helping my kids to learn how to walk.
So speaking of that song, obviously it switches the subject, right? So I'm curious, when you were dating, were you more of a hunter or a gatherer?
I wasn't a hunter at all. No. And that, I mean, anybody can vouch for that. I was someone that like, even in grade 6, started dating a guy for 3 years. Right.
Wow.
And then like every relationship I've ever had has been like long, right, type thing. And kind of like he thought we were going to get married. He thought our life was planned out grade 6. Right.
So what's your favorite physical feature that attracts you the most to a man? What's his favorite part?
Man.
You can only pick
There's
one.
a lot. I have to choose one?
Yeah. You can only pick one.
Man, his arms, maybe?
Yeah.
His chest. Yeah. I mean, think about skinny little arms. Those aren't as attractive as like, you know what I mean? Right?
Yeah, you know what you mean. Do you have like a really embarrassing sex memory that you're willing to share?
A really embarrassing memory. If it's not on the tip of my tongue, probably not. But man, not that I can.
Nothing embarrassing ever happened during.
Well, I'm sure, but nothing nothing that I can think of that would be fun enough to tell, if you know what I mean. No, not really.
Not really. Have you ever been attracted to the same sex before? You can't say me, right? It's got to be something.
No, I haven't actually.
No.
Yeah.
So I'm curious.
I mean, outside of you, obviously.
Outside of me, right? This song is
when your legs don't work like they used to before.
I feel like there's going to be a powerful meaning behind this song.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. Every time you play a song, I wish you would just keep playing it. I'm like, that's all I get to hear. Yeah. Yeah, that song is just kind of Guy and I's song, to be honest. It's a song that every time we hear it, we're like, we both, no matter where we are, we'll look across the room, and it's just, we always dance to it. It's just a song that I don't know why, like, I mean, I do know why. It's just, there's a lot of meaning to that song, right? If you know the song. So taking care of each other and growing old together and that kind of a thing. So it's just, I love the song. It's just
It's a great song. It's a great song for sure. So I'm just curious, if you were blind, how would you describe the color yellow to somebody?
Like if I've never seen it before?
Yeah, if you've never seen it before.
How would you describe it if you've never seen it? Can you do that?
No.
So say I went blind and
Sure, let's say you went blind.
Okay, so I went blind.
Describe, I'm blind. We meet at a blind bar, right? And you're hitting on me. And I'm like, I only go out with people if they can describe the color yellow to me.
Okay, well, since blind people use their senses, so it's, oh man, can you say it smells like smells like a lemon? Smells like a lemon. It's warm like the sun. It's describe yellow. I mean, I've literally sit here with my highlighter. I don't know how you describe it.
You're doing good.
It's happy, right? It's warm and happy and fresh, and
that's good. Oh, I love it. That's awesome. Right? It's like this song is really awesome. Right? Yeah. Free Fallin' by Tom Petty. I am curious, before you tell me why you love that song. I feel like we all have had a time in our life where we've listened to that song, and then when it says free, now I'm free. What did you say during that? Did you say I'm free falling, or did you say something else?
I said I'm free falling. And that could be wrong. Is that wrong?
No, it's right. But when I grew up, we used to say we were free basing, which is probably the greatest thing to say. And I asked Tyler that question, and he said tree falling. So everybody has their own
right.
lyrics to that
free
song.
basing.
So I always like to ask if somebody has that song on their playlist, if they used to say something different to it, because lots of people have. What does that song mean to you when you hear it?
When I was a paramedic and a firefighter, my partner Stacy, she's absolutely obsessed with Tom Petty. So this song, back then, we could play cassettes in the ambulances. So we sometimes would have like a long, drive to someone's house because, or the scene, because we'd be, 30 minutes, 40 minutes away. So between my Guns N' Roses tape and her Tom Petty tape, we played a lot of music like that. So that was something that I can, if I think back to that song, I can close my eyes and I'll be like in the ambulance with her, and we're both just like belting it out as loud as possible, And it's funny because people probably think that it's a little more serious if, in an ambulance when you're responding to something quite serious, but inside we'd be using our seatbelts as microphones, and right. And that's just kind of a good stress reliever too, right? It just makes it a little bit more light, but for us, right.
I can imagine, right? Once that kind of flick that switch, you have to be kind of in that. So I agree.
Yeah.
I love it. So is there anything, Sarah, that makes you like super angry? Sets you off? Any kind of pet peeves? Do you have any pet peeves or something that, if somebody does that, you just instant don't want to deal with you?
Yeah. If someone keeps cutting me off, like if someone, even if it's like normal conversation, like doesn't have to be that we're fighting or arguing. It's just that if they're constantly cutting me off, so I cannot speak, right? Or you're just like, and they don't even realize that they've done it. Like they just keep cutting. You're about to answer the question, you're like, I didn't even answer. And then you say something again, you get cut off. Like it drives me crazy. And even in the business coaches I've had over time and life coaches, I've been like, one thing that you cannot stand is not feeling like you're heard. Right. So if I feel like someone just doesn't hear me, or like they're literally cutting me off, or especially in an argument though, or especially if you're trying to sort something out and you just like, let me talk and then you can talk, that kind of thing.
Yeah. I haven't learned that skill very well.
Yeah. At least I know, right? I feel a little bit, better about the fact that that's something that I know about myself. So it's like, listen, I need to be able to speak. So can we just go back and forth? Yeah. That's funny.
Yeah. I'm still learning that one. Poor Tyler, right? I'm still learning that one. He's like, no, I'd like to talk. I'm like, but I'm just going to like talk louder.
I was going to tell you my point. Yeah.
Makes sense. So Sarah, do you have anything that is that you would think is embarrassing that turns you on? Some people, for me, I like to have my toes sucked. So some people might think that's like super embarrassing. I have a really funny story to that, right? That I can elaborate. So
let's hear it.
Old guy in the past, right? We must have been at this bush party. I don't know for how long. And we are dancing and we're around a fire. I was probably like 18, 19 years old. And we woke up in the morning. We've been dating for like 5 years. He had like dirt around his mouth.
Oh my gosh.
My feet were like clean. So that was one of my little kinks, I guess.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty
Yeah.
sexy.
No, I don't think it. Did you say it
Nothing?
was embarrassing that turns me on?
No, nothing?
No, I don't think so.
No guilty pleasures?
I know. I'm so vanilla.
That's okay. Nothing wrong with being, nothing wrong being, are you like loud during sex or quiet during sex?
Great question. This is all the stuff you're trying to get me to pass on. It depends, just kidding. I was going to say, are my parents home? I was just kidding. When you're younger anyway. Yeah. I like to have fun.
Yeah, that's good.
Right?
That's good.
It doesn't seem like it, but I do.
This song that you have on your playlist, I don't think I've ever heard of it. And I grew up with Pearl Jam, and it's just a beautiful song. Just Breathe. It's beautiful. I don't think I've ever heard it before.
I'm surprised you've never heard it.
Yeah. Like I feel like I have, like maybe back in the day, like it feels familiar, but I probably haven't heard that song for like 20 years.
Yeah. I used it when my dad passed away. I made a PowerPoint slideshow of pictures in his life, and I used that song on there. There's a part that talks about every life must end at some point. And so it just was one that I listened to over and over again while I was making the whole PowerPoint present, or whatever it was, slideshow of some kind for my dad's funeral. Yeah.
Beautiful. It's such a beautiful song.
And I was told once by like a psychic, like a medium kind of a thing. She said, every song that you ever hear, like if you just get in the car or if you, like whatever it is, like it's never a coincidence. Like, so don't ever think like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this song's on. Like, what a crazy coincidence. She's like, it's never a coincidence. So it's always, everything is meant to be the way it's meant to be, if that makes sense. And so she said, like, it's very purposeful. So when you just jump in the car for something and you go to drive away and you're like, what? I haven't heard this song. She's like, pay attention, to the song and what it's saying, because it's actually meaningful for your life. So that's just one that, meant something for me.
Yeah, I truly believe that. And it's crazy that you're saying that, because I was listening to your playlist this morning just to be prepared. And I just did UPW, right?
Yeah.
So it's like super crazy. So I'm going through all of this kind of emotion and going through my notes. And like, the third page of my notes, it's like, go find your most beautiful state. And I struggle with that, because sometimes I really struggle with words and language. And I want to come up with like all these amazing words instead of just fun and awesome. And, you know what I mean? So I really struggle with my vocabulary. But it was crazy when I had your playlist on and just the songs. It was amazing how quickly I like wrote out this beautiful state and why I want to be in it. But I didn't listen to any music while I did it. So it was like just came pouring out of me. I was like, this is awesome. And that was like, listening to You Can Do It, Put Your Back Into It. And I was just like, yeah.
Right.
So it was like awesome just to like experience it. So I'm such a big believer in how powerful music can just, not only for me, what I've learned so much is that during COVID, I have been in a non-music state. When I have, when I was saying this to Tyler the other day, I'm like, I have like eat, sleep, love, enjoy music. And during COVID, for some reason, I haven't listened to a lot of music.
Yeah.
Like I know when our 20 years of our relationship together, it's like music, you have to have music. And it's been very quiet during COVID. And now to get back into my love of music again, it's just feels so more, I feel way more balanced. I love music and I love the balance of it. So it's awesome. And this song that you have, it's, it's such a good song, right?
It is.
Phenomenal movie as well, Shallows,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Bradley Cooper. Amazing movie, inspirational movie. But what made you put that on your playlist?
It just, like you said, it's one of those songs that I love to listen to just cranked. Like it's not necessarily related to any memory like I have with most of the other songs. It's just one that I just love, like one that I can just play as loud as possible. But I actually also love the fact that Bradley Cooper is singing in it. Right, because I never, I've only ever known him as an actor before this, and I didn't realize that at first I'm like, that's actually him singing. That's so crazy. So to me it was, and I saw them on a couple of live shows or whatever, doing it together, and it just seemed very meaningful for them too, to play, like, how crazy would it be to be able to sing a song with like Lady Gaga, and it just is a beautiful song. Like, it's just one that I just love. Like I said, I could have probably doubled or tripled this playlist, right? There's so many that came up and I was like, trying to like pick and choose, but this is just one that if I comes on right now, it's like everything has to be, I have to listen,
And I don't watch a lot of TV and interviews and stuff like that, but if I've ever seen anything, it had been their connection. Connection. I actually thought that they would get together because their connection was
same,
so strong.
Yeah.
And I think it was just because they both love music so much and they were able to create something together. And I don't think that, I don't think anybody can ever not, if you're not in that experience, it's amazing.
It's wild.
What is one of your most favorite childhood memories?
One of my most favorite childhood memories. I mean, probably just, we used to come and spend, like, I grew up in Winnipeg, as I said, but we used to come and spend the summers with my dad in Alberta. So we had a cabin out near Pigeon Lake, and we had like, so if it was winter, we had, 6 or 8 kind of beat up snowmobiles that my dad's friend would fix up. So if we found a snowmobile for sale, my dad would just pull over and buy it, and then we'd fix it up, and we would take them at like, 13, 12, that could, like, just, you're allowed to go off on your own snowmobiling with my, family, and there's some friends out there, and dirt biking, and we just bought like whatever. My dad just loved gadgets. So we had this little like Penguin, it's called, that goes on land and on water. We had a boat sink one day when they were out, what do you call it? Not jet skiing. Like boarding behind the boat.
Okay, yeah.
Right. So we're on the beach, and my dad, like, they sunk the boat. It was just like sitting there as a tip. I mean, just Merrill Lake, Pigeon Lake, just kind of the summers, I think, because we didn't see my dad a lot. So coming out here for the summer was something that we like to just kind of do different adventures. And it's probably my favorite. Yeah.
I love it. So I want you to imagine you're on a desert island. What is 3 things that you would take with you? You can take anything in this entire world. What are 3 things that you would take with you?
Is all of my family and friends a choice? Is that a top?
And the rest have to be, you can utilize other things like deodorant, right? Might be a good idea.
Oh man, a toothbrush.
Toothbrush.
A toothbrush. Yeah, it's a deserted island. I mean, outside of the obvious, like, water, that I want to survive. I mean, I guess
brush your teeth with sand. So
right.
You need a toothbrush.
Truly.
They don't have toothbrushes on Survivor.
I mean, a margarita maker. Like, I mean, if I could just snap my fingers and margaritas would come out, like a Margaritaville would be cool. Like one of those 3 ones. So you could have like pina coladas and daiquiris.
But if you had to pick 3, it'd be like the maker, the ice, and the booze. So
see, that wouldn't work then. That wouldn't work.
And do that. What's something unusual that you've eaten over all your travels through the planet? Have you ever eaten anything really weird?
Not really weird. I'm like super, I grew up like not eating meat or like seafood at all. So now I just in the last few years, I've just started eating steak and shrimp and certain, right. But like I've tried alligator. I've tried like, octopus. It's not super crazy, but I've tried them in the moment, right? But nothing super wild. I always had like a texture issue, if you know what I mean. So like those eating food challenges, I'm like fascinated by watching people do it, but probably because there's no way that I would do it,
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So your last song, Sarah, this song I've never heard before, and it made me laugh so much because I'm like curious where the story comes from. But I can see like some people that I know in my life just like walking around, like peacocking everywhere.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
song is just,
yeah. I know exactly what you're going to play.
Right? J-Rock win. Like insane.
Right?
So I've never heard it before. I absolutely think it's hilarious.
Yeah, to be honest, that song does remind me of WFG for a lot of reasons, right? I mean, like you said, peacocking around, that kind of thing, but like, in a good way. Like there's, we're not taught, but you want to win, right? Like in life and in everything. So it's sort of like it's a super cocky kind of like, if you want to go and kind of increase your confidence to like, I got this, I can do this. It's one of those songs that like, you're not really, I don't know if I would say proud of, but necessarily, but it's kind of like, I wouldn't want it to be like a stage song or anything like that, but I can see people walking out like, just, I love how you said peacocking around, because it's exactly what that is. But it's kind of meaningful for like the fact that we, are in WFG and building businesses and in the entrepreneurial world, you just want to go and win, right? You just, I don't know, winning is obviously different for you and me and everyone else of what that looks like, but it's something that I think is also motivational and kind of gets you like to the point where, like you said, how music just puts you in this, state.
Yeah.
It's kind of one of those things that puts you in this like, okay, different state than you were in. Like Tony Robbins talks about changing your state. Like that's a song that changes my state, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for being on Music Junkies today. I appreciate you like you would not believe. And it's been super fun. I want to do it again for sure. And hopefully you can convince Guy to do it with you.
Yeah, totally.
Go to the house. We'll have a beautiful dinner and have some wine.
Yes.